What's going on, everyone? Welcome to show number 218 of the ARC Junkies Podcast. In today's episode, I'm chatting with Jeremy Condrey, owner and operator of Southern Welding Company, located in Inman, South Carolina. I wanted to get Jeremy on the show because of how many people reach out to me about starting their own welding business. While there's no perfect answer and there isn't a typical path to start a successful welding business, Jeremy lays out a great way on how he started his and a lot of things you should consider if you want to strike out on your own. We'll get right into his story right after a quick word from the supporters of the show. Today's episode of the ARC Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders, machine built for the home hobbyist and small business. As a small business owner myself, I choose Everlast based on performance and the price. Everlast has a machine for every budget and every skill level. Head on over to everlastwelders.com today and see which machine is right for you. They have a lot to choose from. Maybe you're in the market for a reliable stick or TIG welder, or even a MIG welder to increase productivity. Perhaps what you really need is a multi-process welder or even a plasma cutter. They've got it all. And all IGBT inverter machines from Everlast come with a 5-year warranty. Find out which machine is right for you today at everlastwelders.com. And don't forget to use code word ARCJunkies in the comment section at checkout when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal and get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by ISOTUNES. I've been rocking the same pair of ISOTUNES for the past 3 years now, and it's my favorite piece of PPE. ISOTUNES are Bluetooth headphones that meet the requirements of OSHA and NIOSH to be used as hearing protection in the workplace. ISOTUNES makes wireless headphones, earmuffs, and ISOTUNES Free, which are completely wireless. You can get your ISOTUNES today at isotunes.com, and right now you can save $10 off when you buy your first pair and use the code word ARCJunkies at checkout. Head on over to isotunes.com. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Rockmount understands you work hard, and so does your equipment. Downtime is expensive and your time is limited. That's where Rockmount comes in. They don't believe in short-term solutions and putting band-aids on repairs. Instead, they prefer to partner up with you, the end user, to weld stronger so your equipment can last longer. Ask yourself, what's my most common repair? And then ask yourself, why does it keep happening? The answer is probably pretty obvious. You're making the repairs with rods and wires meant for initial fabrication. Don't get me wrong, those rods and wires can work great in some instances, but when you have to weld over dirty material covered in hydraulic oil, rust, and paint, they don't do so well. That's why there's Rockmount. They're designed to weld and perform in less than desirable areas where you're not able to perform the good prep work you need. Rockmount also makes rods and wires for unidentifiable steel alloys that boast 135,000 pounds of tensile strength and 35% elongation for a repair that's going to last. Check out rockmountwelding.com today and find the consumable to help you deal with your current and future repairs. And don't forget, you can get all of your Rockmount rods and wires right through MSC Direct and save time and money by getting free shipping right to your door. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
What's up, guys? This is Matt Arnold from Warrior Welding LLC out of Dallas, Texas, and you're listening to the one and only ARC Junkies Podcast.
Listening to the ARC Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Jeremy, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about Southern Weld Company.
Well, it was a wild idea that I started. Well, it started in my head several years ago, but I didn't actually get it put into place till about 2 years ago, basically right at the start of, everything that's happened in the world today. But I was on a project up in North Carolina. I was a CWI up there on a project, and I knew when I went into that project that I was going to try to make that my last on-the-road project, and I was going to try to make Southern Weld Company a reality. So I'd spent many nights sitting in the camper thinking about how it would be, if I had my own business. So I researched the kind of machines I wanted, the type of setup that I wanted to have, and I started researching the other welders in my area, and I also started researching who would need my services. And so that was, I kind of started laying out a roadmap long before I even purchased my first machine, before I even applied for the LLC or anything like that.
And it's a good thing you did that, because I know like a lot of people, when they, they start picking up, side work here and there, and then they'll all of a sudden they're like, hey, I want to launch my own business, and they like go right into it. And a lot of times they'll fall flat on their face because, unlike you, they didn't do the market research. How big of a need is in my area? How far am I going to have to travel to do the work? Because, things are great now that I've got, a couple guys down the road that constantly bring me their work. But once I incorporate and now I start accumulating more overhead for a shop and electricity and materials, and where's all this work going to come from? Is there enough work to sustain me in my county, or do I need to travel?
Yeah. And that was one thing with me. I traveled, I've been a contractor for several years. So I had been down there in Florida. I wasn't too far from you several years ago, down in Crystal River.
Okay.
Working down there. And I've been to Ohio and, down in the Gulf, in Louisiana and places like that. So I'd been traveling. So starting out doing side work wasn't an option for me because I came from the road. So I saved up my money, put a lot of thought and effort into this because I really did not want to fall flat on my face. And well, I haven't yet. I've almost have a few times, but I've managed to get through it. But that was one of the things that I knew that I didn't want to go start a job and then start trying to get it built up on the side. So I kind of dove in a little deeper, but I also looked real hard before I dove in on how I was actually where I was going to jump and how I was going to jump. Mm-hmm. So I tried to make a conscious effort into just saying, oh, I'm going to go buy a welding machine and I'm going to start a business. And that's, I did not want to go that route.
How long do you think it was that you were actually in the planning stages of developing your business and kind of getting a mental game plan together?
Several years. I mean, it was, it wasn't a constant, I wasn't constantly working on it. I'd work on it, do a little research on it, do a little research on machines and the setup that I want. Then I'd get 6, 7 12s on a project somewhere and it'd get pushed off. But I always knew, I always wanted to have a good game plan to get started. And a lot of people say, well, you just need to start. Well, I kind of wanted to put more effort into that than just, like, say, buying a welding machine and say, hey, I got a welding business, because I really looked into the legal aspect of it, applying for the LLC, keeping a lawyer on the payroll and an accountant, and trying to make sure that everything was done right before I got too far down the road. And it's like, oh, well, you should have done this, this, and this, and this. So I put a lot of legwork into it, but it was, over several years of planning and wishing and thinking and stuff like that. Plus, trying to get the money that I needed for my setup and the way that I wanted it to set up and how I wanted it to look when I did get started. Because I didn't want to start something and then not have what I needed to get started, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you don't want to start out there, first day and not have things lined up. Right. I've always, one thing they beat into our head in the military is proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the biggest thing, is to plan things out. And that's the cool thing about being a welder, because when you flip that hood down and everything else goes away, you got a lot of time to sit there and think and plan things out, and you become really good at multitasking. A lot of people say men aren't good multitaskers, but damn, I can carry on a full blown conversation while I'm up underneath the hood, watching that arc and everything. It just becomes kind of like autopilot, and it gives you time to do a lot of self reflecting and planning and. I love it when I can get up underneath there, because there's no interruptions, nobody's walking in on you. Yeah. And
that's one of the things that I missed when I got my CWI and started doing a lot of QC work. I didn't get that kind of escape to where I can just worry about my weld. I can sit here under my hood and not have to run all over the job site. Cause I thought it was kind of cool. I finally got a radio. In about 2 weeks, I actually threw the radio one day. I'm not going to lie. I got pretty aggravated. I mean, the thing just kept going off, and, I'd run all over the job site, checking welds in process. Finally, I just chunked it one. But I shouldn't have, but I did. But it still worked fine. I didn't chunk it far. Nobody saw me do it, but I was just, I miss that, being able to get under the hood, being able to clear my mind. It's almost like getting on the motorcycle and just going for a ride and just kind of letting everything else go. Because you could put earbuds in, you could put even earplugs in, not even have to listen to music per se, and just relax and think and really hone in on what you're wanting to accomplish, and try to work out the details. And then I always try to keep a notebook or something. I'm old school, so I try to keep a piece of paper and pen around where I could jot stuff down. Hey, I get a wild thought and I'll write it down, just because if not, I'll forget about it.
Yep. I'm the same damn way. I got Post-it notes and little notepads all over my office and check boxes and all that's just so I don't forget stuff. Yeah,
and I tell people I got CRS, and they're like, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, because I do. I can't remember
shit.
No, I can't remember nothing.
That's I tell people I got crafts. CRAFTS. Can't remember a fucking thing syndrome. The memory starts going, but I think the problem is, like, I'm trying to process too much information. So unless it's really important, it kind of gets put on the back burner or like in a different cabinet, like in my mental repository is like, it's really got to be important, because I've got so many different irons in the fire that if it's not a pressing issue, I'm going to forget about it. I might come back to it later. It's not completely gone, but that's why I write a lot of things down, just so I can kind of start restructuring and reorganizing and prioritizing things.
And my problem is I get too involved with the details. And I'll lay awake for hours just down to the minute stuff, thinking about it.
Touch OCD.
And I can't shut my brain off.
I've been there. Melatonin helps a little bit.
Yeah, that, and I take CBD.
Oh, there you go. There's a lot of benefits to that.
Absolutely. I was kind of afraid of it because I didn't understand it. Coming from the construction world, I've seen guys lose their job over, failing drug tests, stuff like that. So I never wanted to lose a job because of that. So I'd done my research. I contacted people who were involved with it, and I talked to them. I'm not afraid to call somebody and ask them. And I was really concerned about how is this going to affect me negatively. If the random wagon shows up and now all of a sudden, the QC guy failed the drug test.
Yeah.
So I never really wanted that. So, but I take a great product. I really like it.
There's a company, I can't remember the name of it. It's called New Leaf Naturals. They make a CBD, but the best part is, like, because I can't use anything that has THC in it because I work for the school and just I don't like messing with any of it. But
no,
it's got a lot of anti-inflammatory benefits to it. So for the longest time, I've taken aspirin and goodies and BC powders because I jacked up my back in the military. Right. But with CBD, like the non-THC version, it has a lot of anti-inflammatory stuff in there. So it definitely helps with like joints and gets you moving and, helps alleviate pain. And there's no euphoria or anything associated with it. No. It's very similar to taking aspirin without all the ulcers and stuff you got to deal with.
Right. And I feel 100% safe taking this because I buy it from a health food store, and I take the same stuff, but I noticed, you're talking about the goodie powders, BC powders, stuff like that. I noticed I don't take nowhere near as many of those as I used to. And I used to keep 2 or 3 in my wallet.
Yep.
And keep them in the toolbox, keep some in the truck. Anywhere I was at, I always had to have access to them because but I noticed I don't have as many headaches because of it. So I have seen the benefits of it, and I really do like it.
So now going back to, like when you were on the road and everything, like one of the benefits a lot of people don't realize, because I get a lot of students that come through my program and they're like, why do you want to take the welding program? Why do you want to be here? Why do you want to learn to become a welder? They're like, well, as soon as I graduate, I'm going to go out and start my own business. And it's like, pump the brakes, bud. I always recommend at least, going out into industry and putting in 5 to 7 years at a minimum of work experience. So you can understand how to fix things, how to troubleshoot, how to, you over the course of 5 to 7 years, you come across a lot of different situations that are going to require critical thinking. And you're going to kind of develop that process, that pattern. You're also going to start building up your tool collection. And one of the greatest things working for somebody else or a couple different companies over that 5 to 7 year span is you realize what equipment to invest in. Because you said you did a lot of research on the, the type of welding you're going to get. the type of hand tools and stuff. So the cool thing is you get to try all this stuff out on somebody else's dime. So when it comes your time to, start up your own business, you say, hey, I want to run this type of welding machine because when I was with company A, they had this type of machine and it was junk. And, when I was with company C over here, they had this type and it was freaking awesome and it was affordable and it was reliable and it never gave me any problems. And then company B over here, they use this select brand of power tools or, whatever power tools everybody kind of gravitates towards a specific brand of power tools.
Right.
But the cool thing is you get to try them out, before you buy it. So is that kind of one of the things you did is based off your experience, having access to those tools?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because
favorites?
because a lot of this stuff, when I came out of school, I couldn't afford half this stuff. You get into some of these, some of this special equipment, there was no way I could ever got my hand on it just to, without having it supplied by the company. And then, say if you break it, burn it up, they'll get another one, or you'll I like these cutting discs versus this brand of cutting disc or whatever. And so, yeah, I strongly suggest to anybody, who's definitely thinking about wanting to go out here and get on the road will always be there. So the road's not going anywhere. Invest in yourself, go out here and learn how to mess up in a plant versus going out here trying to mess up in a powerhouse or something like that, to where you can make these mistakes that you can get them fixed and you can learn. Because as a business owner, welding is probably the least thing that I do now. And so I've had to learn to do a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of, just talking to people and things like that, and, figuring out material and all this different stuff like that, because there's tons of stuff out there. And when you're in school, and that's something that I've told the students that I've had, you're learning just a very little bit, just enough to get started. It's a big world out there. There's a lot of tools, a lot of different types of equipment, materials, welding processes. Learn as much as you can. Don't be in such a hurry to run out there, because it can bite you, and you can get hurt too. If you just take the time and think about what you're going to do before you have a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh, well, I'm just going to load up and go down here and, start doing this. I'm a little more cautious about stuff, especially since I've gotten older. I can't just go jump, especially, having a daughter to take care of and having to be responsible. I guess if I was 22 years old, I could probably do a little bit more wilder stuff than what I do, but I have to look at things a lot differently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think right around the age of 30, you start kind of developing. You're like, all right, I'm done with that cowboy up bullshit. I need to start, step back and analyze things before, I jump into it. And that's one of the things I like, that you said is learning how to do repairs. Because I don't care how good of a welder you are, what school you went to, how long you were there, whatever, industry you got in, you're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I think the biggest benefit to making a mistake is learning how to fix it. And that's why I love when people, hey man, I screwed this up. Okay, cool. Now's a great opportunity for me to show you how to fix that, because, if you just graduate welding school and you mom and dad got a bunch of money and they got you all rigged out with a work truck and tools and all that stuff, and you go off on your own on graduation day and you screw something up, you don't know how to fix it just yet. So going out there and making mistakes, out in industry and learning how from the old timers how to repair this. That I think that's the biggest value right there is, learning how to fix your mistakes, because you're going to make them. Everybody's going to make mistakes.
It's inevitable. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I failed weld tests. I've screwed stuff up before that I didn't think I could fix it, but I learned from it, because if I didn't learn from it, I'd still be making them, and I'd be repeating myself. So it takes years. It takes years, and it takes somebody looking after you and say, hey, it is all right. We've all made mistakes. Here's how we fix it. This is how you should have went about it. And you learn from it, and you're a better welder because of it.
And don't hide your mistakes. I mean, like I said, everybody's going to make them. And I've seen people on job sites, they screw something up or they break something, even when they use it improperly, and they try to hide it because it's like there's shame attached to screwing something up. And it's like, no, man, just bring it forward. Let me see it. You know, now's a teachable moment. Let me show you how to fix this, because I remember when I did it 5 years ago and my mentor showed me how to make that repair. So, you know, we're going to cut it apart here. We're going to bend this. We're going to heat this up. And, you know, I mean, it's just going through those growing pains. You're not going to get that in any welding school that you go through. And you're definitely not going to get it striking out on your own and just trying to, you know, like fake it till you make it as a business owner.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you can fake it till you make it for so long, and then you're going to have to pay the piper. You know, your bill's going to come due in some form or fashion, you know, whether it's a lawsuit or an injury or something like that. So, you know, there's a lot to it than just back to, you know, just getting a welding machine and say, hey, I'm going to go weld. And I got my own business. So, you know, take the time, learn and build, you know, because I would be apprehensive about hiring somebody fresh out of school versus hiring somebody with 20 years of experience. But, you know, it takes time. And that's what I've told students in the past. Hey, look, this takes time. You know, I mean, like today, I'm not going to lie about it. I got aggravated today. I was welding on some parts, and it was kicking my butt. And finally, I just had to walk away. But I've learned what I can and what I can't do. But I tell, like I say, I've told students several times, take your time, learn from it, think about what you're doing, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the question. You know, how can I fix this? How can I do this? I see that I'm doing this and I'm not getting this result. What am I doing wrong? And I might not be always the right person to show you, but I can probably find you somebody who can. Yeah.
That was like when I was in the classroom teaching, that was one of my favorite moments, is when the students would come in like first thing in the morning with a little notepad. And they're like, hey, you know, I was laying in bed last night and I was thinking about this, that, and the other thing. And like, they just start firing off questions, and you're like, yes, you are going to do great in this, because you got that knack. You want to ask those questions, where a lot of people, you know, they'll sit back, you cover a topic, or you do a demonstration on a piece of equipment or a machine or a weld process. And you're like, does anybody have any questions? And you look across and like, nobody wants to be the one to ask the question, because they don't want to, they were like, oh, that's a stupid question. Everybody else is thinking it. Just go ahead and ask. You know, especially if you're paying to be there. Like, I'm there to answer your questions. You pay my salary. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. And if I don't know the answer, hell, I'm going to refer you to somebody that can. I do the same thing, like through Instagram. I get a lot of DMs on technical questions, whether it's CWI stuff or like welding stuff. I had one today. Somebody asked me about passivation equipment for food grade material. And I was like, that's something that, you know, I'm not too familiar with, but I know somebody who is going to have that answer. And I referred them to somebody else. So, I mean, if you don't know, that's fine. You know who to contact, you know? So like, questions are great. Ask as many questions as you can in the classroom, out in industry. Hell, you know, even, you know, in my position, I still find people that I can ask questions to, because I don't know everything. You can't know everything.
No. And that's one thing too, is having the resources and the network. And I tell, when I was, you know, I'd have students coming up to me, they're getting close to graduating and stuff like that. And it's like, where can I get a job? Who's hiring and stuff like that? And I said, well, do you have a LinkedIn account? And I'm like, no. I said, well, the first thing you need to do is set up a LinkedIn account and just put as much information in there as you can. And then start sending out contact, you know, invites to HR people, safety people, quality people, other welders, and start building the network. And then when you get out there on the job, start building that network. And, you know, and you know, ask these questions and listen, because it's one thing to ask a question and not listen. Because I've had students ask me the question before, and I know that I've told them 3 or 4 times because they've asked the same question. But yeah, listen, take note, you know, process it, and build from that.
I had that problem as a young welder. Like, I'd ask a question, and, you know, as I'm waiting for the response, like I'm still talking, or like definitely not really listening intently. And I had one of my buddy, Don Watson, man, he was probably one of the best iron workers I ever knew. And I was just a young apprentice. And he's like, don't hear me, listen to me. And like, ever since then, I was like, boom, that resonated. Like, I'm not just listening to you talk. Like, I'm focusing in on what you have to say, because you're departing knowledge that I need to answer my question. So it's my time to just shut up and listen. And, but as a young cocky welder, you get out there and you want to tell and show the world how great you are, but you still don't know nothing. Still don't know anything going out there. Yeah.
And I've, when I first started, we didn't have, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff. So we didn't see, when I was going to school, I went to the welding school I went to. Only reason why I went there is because it was the closest one to the house. Mm-hmm. So that's why I went there. But there was no, I didn't know what pipeliners and welding rigs, because I'm in the upstate of South Carolina. You don't see pipeliners and welding trucks and stuff like that around here that often. So, I didn't see all these $100,000 rigs and all these people with flashy money and out here on the right of way making all this money. And, I didn't see the glamour of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what the road was. When I got out of school, I went and got a job and, working in these plants here at the house doing maintenance and things like that. It wasn't probably 8 to 10 years in my career before I really started knowing what the road was.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that went out. I mean, they would do, I always heard about doing shutdowns and, like paper mills and nuke plants and stuff like that. Like we'd lose guys, when I was doing iron work to like specific shutdowns and, and I was like, well, I don't know what that is. Like, had no idea. Same thing with like all the stuff that's going on out in Texas and all the pipeliners. Like that stuff's not big in Florida. So I had no idea what that was. So like here we're heavy into like manufacturing, architectural, ornamental, structural, all that stuff. So like when you see a work truck going down the road, it definitely doesn't look like the ones that are rolling down, in Texas with all the custom made rear ends and, they got the flat bodies on them with the welding machines and the reels and all that, all like a rollout wheel on the back. I never seen any of that stuff till like way later in life when I started seeing it on Instagram, and then I could kind of pick it up as I'm driving down the highway. Every once in a while I see a rig truck from, based out of Texas, and they cruising down the road, and it's like, damn, that's pretty cool. Like I've never had that opportunity where I'm at. No. It's a different industry down here altogether.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was saying earlier. That goes back to, researching when I got, when I was going to start the business, who was going to be my customer, who was going to be my clientele. Did I need a rig truck? No, I didn't need a rig truck. I needed something a little bit more elaborate. I needed to be able to do more than just stick weld. So I needed a machine that could do more processes and it had AC capability, and I could, take aluminum off of in the field. So that was going back to my research, because if I would have, because I've had students come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go pipelining. You're not going to get too far. Mm-hmm. Especially if you think you're going to come out with $100,000 truck and you're just going to get your old pancake hood and slide on out to the Midwest, out to Texas, Oklahoma, and just start showing them boys how to do it. And you live in South Carolina. Yeah. It's not going to happen. But, that's finding out who your industry is and who your client is probably one of the biggest things when trying to figure out hey, even am I going to be successful, and how many competitors do I have? Because there's no use in you starting a business when there's 100 of you here in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So now, how did you identify your industry, and was that industry very similar to what you were already doing on the road, or did you have to come back and kind of adapt to learning a new industry? Still within the welding realm. Right.
Well, I knew what I had here in my area. We have a lot of manufacturing, and BMW, the auto manufacturers, the biggest industry we have. And then there's a lot of other manufacturers that, support BMW. Plus we have Michelin and 3M and a lot of other huge manufacturing companies. And then we have chemical plants and a couple smaller power plants and things like that, a couple of nuclear stations. But our biggest is manufacturing. And so when I was out here working in these plants as a maintenance guy, and we had things that was beyond our realm, we had to call in a specialist, or a different company to come in and, okay, we don't really have pipe welders here on the maintenance side of it, because the one thing we're doing is MIG welding a bunch of, racks and grates and, whatever, but we got to have this whole line replaced. So we're going to have to bring in a mechanical company to come in and do all that. Okay, well, me having that background, once I got out on the road, that's where I kind of wanted to focus my business, is doing a lot of piping and stuff like that in the things that the maintenance people couldn't handle. And I mean, there's plants everywhere around here. I mean, and they're constantly going up. There's not a patch of land around here that doesn't have a housing development on it or some type of industrial commercial structure going up on it. Mm. And being up here and kind of sitting in between Atlanta and Charlotte, so I'm in a real prime area for a lot of growth. And ever since BMW moved in back almost over 30 years ago, I've seen a tremendous, growth in this area. So I know that, a lot of earth moving equipment is around here, and like I say, a lot of industry, power and chemical and stuff like that, and then a lot of manufacturing. So that's who I've kind of set my core, customer base on.
So you do like a lot of the maintenance type work and stuff to keep the facility up and running, to keep those men and women kind of going?
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. Like I say, the business, I started it 2 years ago. It's been hit or miss. I'll get some. Just my biggest thing is trying to bridge that gap. And so I've been on LinkedIn, and I've been out there looking for maintenance supervisors and maintenance engineers and facility directors and people like that, so I can send out contacts to and kind of aggravate them a little bit. Say, hey, I got this business, I got all this stuff. I'm here if you need me. And then, trying to build the Google and my Google listing and things like that. But I'm starting to get more and more calls when it comes to, doing work in the industry. I have a couple things that I'm working on right now, but it's been a slow go.
I think LinkedIn is probably one of the most underutilized pieces of social media that a welder has in their arsenal. Mm-hmm. To download that, yes, it's essentially an adult Facebook or an adult Instagram, mm-hmm. but it's a great platform. I tell my students every time they come through the program, I do a whole spiel on like resumes, cover letters, networking, build mm-hmm. your network. That's the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. Start a LinkedIn profile and start sharing some of the work that you're doing. The great thing is you can build your resume right there on LinkedIn, mm-hmm. and then it's sitting there. So like I can't tell you how many freaking job offers I've had, and I'm not even looking for work through LinkedIn, because I listed all my credentials, certifications, my mm-hmm. background, pictures of work that I've done, and people will reach out to you even when you're not looking for work. Yeah, and a lot of people underestimate that because they're like, oh, that's for like, the white collar people. No, it's not. No, I mean, it's a big, platform. And especially if you're a veteran, you get like, I think, a free 1 year premium subscription to LinkedIn. You just log in with your, or set up an account through ID.me, and mm-hmm. you get like a free 1 year premium. Cause like, I guess the regular LinkedIn has like certain limitations.
It does.
But once you get on that premium one, like as a veteran or like as an educator, even, you get a free year's worth of, LinkedIn. And like I signed up for it 3 years ago and they haven't turned it off yet. I hope they're not listening. I doubt they are. But like I've still got, free premium LinkedIn that I don't pay for.
Wow. Cause I've actually, I will max it out with my searching. It only allows you so much, and mm-hmm. I'll send out so many eBots. And once I send out so many, it'll just start blurring everything out, and it'll want me to upgrade to that premium. And I'm kind of cheap right now. For my premium package is like $100 a month.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So
that's a bit much to like, you got to start raking in some of that money first.
Yeah. So I'm like, until I start seeing more of the benefit of, but I've seen the benefit and I've seen the connectivity. But I also didn't want to look like I was like some used car salesman when I was trying to approach these people, trying to be professional as I can. So a lot of times I was just, hey, I'm just trying to build my network on Southern Weld Company. Just wanted to say hello. And I'd leave it at that. And sometimes I would get engagements from it. I've actually got a guy that I'm working with now who does breweries. And so I've made a connection with him, and they build breweries all over the country. So a lot of sanitary piping and things like that. So I'm hoping, hopefully something like that's going to come through. But if it wasn't for LinkedIn, I would not have made that connection.
Mm-hmm. And one of the coolest things is they've got people can endorse you. So if you do work for a client, they can go and endorse specific skills. So if you say, like fabrication, blueprint reading, weld symbols, this type of welder, they can endorse your skills and then kind of leave comments on your work and stuff. And, and then people start to see that and they're like, oh, this company hired him to do some work and they left these type of reviews and endorsed his skills. Okay. Yeah. It's worth going ahead and getting a quote from that company. Yeah, absolutely. Cause it's everybody who's in the, professional industry. This is what they're after. And I mean, I know people that all they do is LinkedIn. I stay on LinkedIn probably more than I do any social media platform on the daily. And I check it probably every hour because I think it updates like every 15 minutes or so. So I'm on it constantly, sending out stuff, checking this. I get a lot of my news and stuff like that because I like it too because not a lot of politics involved with it. Yep. So I can get in there and I can, and that's one thing, if you do try to when you go to set up this account, when you're posting, be professional. Very. Keep your, keep all your, your 2 cents out of it, as far as, what's going on in the world today and just concentrating on why you're there. And that is to be a professional welder or an inspector or business owner or whatever. No, that's very good advice. You don't want to get on there and start. I mean, and there's some people on there that do that. And I'm like, damn, man, this is not the place for your personal opinion. Like, show me what you're working on. Show me the type of industry that you're involved in. If I want to go see like politics and all that other shit, like I'll log into Facebook. Yeah. But like 100% professional with LinkedIn. And it's not a dating site. So I've actually been hit on one time from this one woman, and I'm going to say she wasn't very attractive anyway, but I was like, what's this got to do with work? This ain't Tinder. This is not, Facebook dating or Match or whatever, this ain't the site for it. It's definitely the higher tier of the social media. Is like a lot of, the stuff you'll see on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all that. It won't cross-pollinate. Well, 90% of the time, it's not going to cross-pollinate with LinkedIn. No, not at all. That's where you want to go, share your work, share reviews from, past clients, or show people what you're working on, network, engage with people. It's a very, very powerful platform, and a lot of people don't give it enough credence. But I think that's just because, like, when you log in, it's like, man, it's nothing like the social media platforms that I'm used to. And that's good. And you don't want to get on there and chase likes and comments and post the most absurd or obscure stuff on there. Like, it's a professional environment, and it is. The weird thing is it's very white collar-esque in a blue collar world. Right. So I see a lot of professionals on there that, that I link up with and talk to them, and you get great conversations going, or, I'm able to place students, with having a network or a LinkedIn profile, or, if things didn't work out where I'm at right now, like I could always like reply to a message on there and like bounce out the next day. And I wanted mine to look to if the CEO, let's just say Duke Energy, the largest energy provider we have here in the United States, and they're headquartered right up the road from me in Charlotte. If the CEO looked at my profile, would she be embarrassed? Right. Would I be somebody that she would look at and say, yes, I would want him on our facility doing work for us, or stay away from that guy or stay away from that company? So, if you want to go, talk about who you voted for and what your beliefs are, Yeah, it's not the place to do it. No, go to Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And even then, I know a lot of companies are even checking that now. Oh yeah. Like if you apply, like we have an employer here in town that if I send students to, I'm like, hey, clean up your social media. Like they're going to find you on social media. And like, if you're out there doing keg stands and, this other stuff, like that's all well and good, but remember you're currently looking for a job. And once you put it out there, it's public information. So whatever you got on your TikTok, your Facebook, your Instagram, all this stuff is public information. They find you because you just submitted a resume. So now they got your name, your address. They got all this information on you. And like, what kind of person is little Timmy outside of, who he was during the interview today? And, they start combing through your profile and they're like, yeah, let's not call him back. Let's go with like little Susie over here because like we checked her profile out and it's pretty clean. And, I think she'd be a good representative of our company on and off the clock.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are looking at that and even stuff that you might've posted 5-10 years ago, they'll dig back through there. So if you got anything out there that you shouldn't have, or might want to, like you say, go back and buff it up a little bit, clean it up a little bit. I've
actually heard of companies requesting as part of your employment agreement for your username and password. Now, obviously, certain people think, oh, that's a breach of privacy. Yes, it is to an extent. But if you want to go work for that company, depending on the type of work that it is that they do, especially government contracting and stuff, they're going to comb through with a fine tooth comb. And, kind of like not giving them permission to do that is like an omission of guilt. So it depends. Do you really want to work there? If you do, that's kind of like, that's the buy-in.
Right.
That's my profile. Like I'll give anybody the username and password. Well, not anybody. There's a lot of people out there who do some fraudulent stuff. But if I was applying for a job, I wouldn't have any issues turning that over because I send it out to the public anyway. There's nothing in there that I've got to hide. And that's why, I don't put stuff out there that I don't want people to see. I don't take pictures and film videos of it if I don't want somebody to see it.
Exactly.
It's like living in the 90s all over again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the best time.
We grew up in an era, man. Like nobody had cell phones. You could do a bunch of dumb shit and nobody caught it on photo because like nobody's running around with a camcorder or a Polaroid.
No. Yeah, and the little fun savers, you just couldn't get that thing wound quick enough and get a good picture.
Exactly.
And by the time you did, you had to wait a couple of weeks by the time you went to the drugstore and dropped it off and got it back.
Yeah. You got to drop 1 hour photo. That was a big thing back in the day, man.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's instantaneous. So let me ask you this. When you decided to pick like the type of equipment, that you were kind of dead set on, or when you did your research to start your company, what were some of the things that you considered for, like what kind of welding machine am I going to buy? What type of cordless tools am I going to buy? What type of, what brand of wrenches am I going to buy? Because I don't care, who you are. If you're a welder, you need to have wrenches, Allen keys. Like you got to be able to take stuff apart sometimes to get to what needs to be welded. Like what are some of the things you took into consideration when going out and buying this equipment?
Well, over the years, I had accrued a lot of toys, little tools here and there. I call them toys, but tools, toys, same thing. I've clamps here, wrenches here. Now, I'm not a mechanic by trade, never claimed to be. So all my stuff was, I'd go down to Sears and get Craftsman tools. So most of my, wrenches and sockets and things like that are all Craftsman stuff. So I've got a bunch of that. But I've always been drawn toward Lincoln machines. So when I decided on a platform to build off of, I started looking at their engine-driven machines because I knew I wanted to start out as a mobile welder. And so I researched the machines, the capabilities, the other stuff that was compatible with it, like being able to TIG weld aluminum mobily. And so I started researching all that, and I landed on the Ranger 250 GXT. And then I knew that I could add this TIG module, and this would allow me to TIG aluminum. And then I knew if I wanted to add a wire feeder, this certain wire feeder would work with it, and this certain plasma cutter would work off of it. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to get everything right then, but if I could start with that Ranger, and I started it with an undercarriage, because everything on my trailer, I started out with an enclosed trailer, everything is in there on wheels. My torches, but everything's secured. But I also have it to where if I need to, I can offload everything off that trailer. And so I knew that I wanted to be able to roll the machine in and out, which most of the time the machine stays in the trailer. I open the rear ramp, the top hatch, and I'll open the side door to let air kind of run through there. And but that's what I based it off of. What can I add to it, and how can I build it up bigger? Because there was, certain machines that wasn't going to allow you to do AC work and things like that. So that was something that I knew that I wanted to be able to offer as a service. And me being able to offer that service has got me a lot of work, because that separated me from the rest of the welders in town. That we're all kind of the same, because I thought to myself, what can I do that was different? How can I take a different approach on what everybody else is doing? Because how am I going to stand out if I look like every single body else? So I have an enclosed trailer. I don't know of anybody around here that has an enclosed trailer. And then I got a wrap on it. So everybody knows who I am, because I pass several welding trucks and guys like that do welding work. I ain't got a phone number, a name, nothing. Don't even know who they are. Got all this nice stuff, but I ain't got a clue who this man is. So, that's what I did. So but most of my stuff, as far as power tools, I run a lot of DeWalt, because I do run batteries on a lot of my stuff. So I didn't want to have different manufacturers of batteries and different chargers and stuff like that. So I generally stay with DeWalt. I try to stay with Craftsman as much as I can. The whole not made in the U.S. thing kind of is a disappointment, where you can't go down to Sears no more. You got to go to Lowe's.
Can't go to Sears, but but I mean, the cool thing is the warranty transfers. So if you have an old Craftsman and you take it down to Home Depot, or not Home Depot, damn, they're going to sue me for that. If you have an old Craftsman set and you take it down to Lowe's, they'll replace it with a Cobalt, because it still has that lifetime warranty. And guess what? That warranty now transfers. So I've actually considered going down and picking up some Cobalt stuff, because that lifetime warranty. But then again, Home Depot has Husky, and I can't remember what company they acquired to be able to offer a lifetime warranty on that. But I mean, that's one of the biggest things you want to look at, is like, what's the warranty on this stuff? Yes. And that's why I tell people, a lot, that reach out to me via Instagram, like, hey, what type of, this, that, and the other thing should I get? Okay, well, what type of work you're doing, and what's your budget? And think about this, like, they want to know what kind of machine I should get. Think about, when are you going to be using that tool? If you're using it on the weekend, maybe find something that you can pick up at Home Depot or Lowe's, because if you need customer service or warranty work, they're open. Most of your, welding supply stores, they're not open on the weekends. So if you're doing like small side gigs and stuff, and like the weekend is your prime time to shine, and you blow a contact tip or you pin a contact tip, well, guess what? You can't go out and get that tip till Monday morning. Well, shit, it's Friday night. You're trying to get some work done so you can enjoy Sunday. Think about where you're going to be able to get parts and service on this piece of equipment. And having a warranty on something is, I mean, that's a big deal. And then I like what you said, how you really didn't plan on what do I need right now. You're like, what do I need in the future? So I like the fact that you took that into consideration. You're like, okay, I'm going to get this Lincoln Ranger because I would like to run AC in the future. Even though I don't have a whole lot of AC TIG work right now, I want to be able to do that. So I'm going to get a machine that's compatible with that. But I also need something that's going to be able to run a suitcase, because I'm probably going to be doing a lot of hardwire or flux core. So I need something that's going to be able to push that machine. And then when I look at a suitcase, I might have to run hardwire inside of a facility or gas shielded. So I need a suitcase that's compatible, that has a gas hookup and a solenoid. So you kind of planned everything out, way in advance, thinking I need a machine that's capable of this, but I only needed to do, like, for instance, I only needed to be able to do stick welding right now. And that stick welding is going to pay for, the next piece of equipment that's compatible with this. Because a welding machine, that's a hell of an investment. You look at some machines and they're like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000.
And I that's what I did. But I bought all my stuff new, and a lot of people's going to be like, well, you need, you're going to save money by shopping used and things like that. But I wanted the warranty.
I'm a big fan of a warranty. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I've already cashed in on one warranty on a machine that it wasn't my fault. It was just a faulty part. Luckily the warranty covered it. So it's getting fixed. No problem. And it was no fault of my doings. It was just a piece with the machine. So, but I didn't think of everything. I tried to think of everything when it comes to planning. And you can't plan for everything, but that's, but I gave it my best when it came to, that goes back to who's my industry, what can I possibly be working on and things like that. And, I don't necessarily need a plasma cutter right now. It took 2 years before I actually got a plasma cutter, but I actually ended up getting a job that was going to require me to need it.
Mm-hmm.
And the job ended up paying for it. It's like I bought a mag drill. Didn't need a mag drill until this certain job come up, and doing the math and the calculations on the job and how I bid it, the job paid for the mag drill.
Yep. I've bought a lot of tools off putting it into the bid.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I knew that, like I said, that's why I went with the Ranger. I'm kind of biased toward Lincoln equipment and things like that. So that's why I settled on that specific machine. It's just to be able to add off of it, when the time come down the road, can I do this with this machine? Because it was going to be the cornerstone, because the machine itself, like I say, I bought it new. I bought it with the undercarriage. And then when I added that TIG module to it to be able to do AC, to do high frequency TIG on aluminum, stuff like that, that module costs about as much as the machine itself.
Yeah.
But, but I have it.
Have you seen that? What is it? I think it's the Lincoln 375 Air plasma cutter.
Yes.
It generates its own. Is that what you got? It generates its own air on demand as you're cutting.
Actually, I went a little higher. I actually have a Tomahawk 1000.
Okay.
So I'd gotten it it's probably been about a little over a month now. And I debated on that model. And I've looked around, at different manufacturers when it comes to plasma cutters. And then when I went, my deciding factor on the Lincoln was parts.
Mm-hmm.
Where I get all my stuff, consumables. How much, if I go with this manufacturer here, and that's the same thing I've done with my cutting
What am I
torch.
going to pay in consumables? Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, what options do you have? Who do you sell the most consumables of? And can I get them? Do you have them in stock? Do you have to order them? What do you have in case I come in here on a 4:00 on a Friday afternoon in a panic needing something? Do you have it?
What do you got in stock? Yeah.
Yes. And so that was one thing that I also based my decision on, because I have a Smith torch, a regular Smith cutting torch. And I bought this, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago. And the reason why I went with it versus the Victor was they carried more tips and accessories for the Smith. So that's why I went with that. I mean, because, pretty much the same torch, for the most part. But that was the deciding factor on that, was how many accessories and tips and stuff can I get, and how quick can I get it a replacement if need be as well.
That's another thing to look at, is like your welding distributor, your supplier.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do they carry as far as inventory?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we've got a couple different suppliers here, like in Central Florida, and there's only one company I go to because they carry in stock like $1 million worth of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll walk in there and be like, hey, do you guys have, this, that, and the other thing? And they're like, boom, done. Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a great company to deal with. And it's not the big, the teal, blue, and white one that everybody's thinking of. It's like a dark green and white company. And
yeah,
I don't want to plug it on the podcast, but you can probably figure it out.
Right.
But they're and the customer service is great. So I mean, that's why I like walking into that door. They treat me like family, and like I said, I walk in, I'm like, hey, do you guys have this contact tip? I need a couple diffusers and some nozzles for this make and model of machine. And like, boom, they got it. They're like, oh, I don't have it on the showroom floor. I got it upstairs, or I got it out back. Done. Boom. They've got it. Versus, you walk into some, welding distributors and you're like, hey, do you have like a very standard contact tip? Like I need some 035s for, a Lincoln Magnum. And they're like, yeah, no, don't have them in stock, but I can order them for you and, have them next Thursday. And it's like, shit, I can get it on Amazon by tomorrow. I need it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I needed it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a job and I just pinned my last contact tip. I need a handful. And
that's one thing too. I try to carry a lot of spare parts, a lot of extra TIG heads.
Got to.
Yeah. And that's, you start accruing that stuff because you can't get it all at once. So you just a little piece here, a little piece there. Over time you start having a fairly decent inventory. And I try to keep my stuff organized to where I know, hey, I'm getting low on this size TIG cup, or I'm fixing to need this more, I'm running out of this size tungsten or whatever. And so I try to keep up with it because it never fails. I'm going to run out or I'm going to break something, usually around 5:30 on a Friday.
Yep.
And like you say, I can't go and get my parts at Lowe's, Home Depot, Northern, any place like that. Nothing against them. It's just, that's not where I can get my stuff.
Yeah, that's not where you're getting your shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like if I need one of something, I'll go buy 5. Because I know that predominantly when I'm able to, when I've got time off from work and time off from the podcast, it's usually a Friday night, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. That's when I've got to do the type of work that I'm doing. And like you said, I can't run to Lowe's and Home Depot and Ace Hardware and pick this stuff up. They don't sell this stuff.
No.
So if I get to a point where I'm down, I got a couple left in my little toolbox. I like tackle boxes. Tackle boxes are freaking great for all your consumables. I'm talking like drive rolls and contact tips and diffusers and nozzles and like all that stuff. So if I need one, I'll go buy 5 or I'll go buy 10, give me a quantity I can work with, especially if it's something that I don't blow through too often. But if it's something that breaks down quite regularly, I'm getting like 25 or a quantity of 50. Because you don't want to be sitting there Friday night with a job that's, you told somebody you're going to have it by Monday morning. And here it is Friday night and you done, oh shit, like that one little, I got a nickel holding up a dime. Like I can't finish this project till I get this part, and the place that I can get the part opens up on Monday. Yep.
And I try to stay away from that situation because, I gave these people my word that you're going to be able to back up and running on Monday morning. And then here I am going to have to call you and say, hey, this little colic that holds my tungsten in my torch,
this 75-cent piece just screwed me over for the next 48 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and now you look bad because of one little thing like that. So that's why I try to plan as far out as I can. Like I say, I don't always plan for everything, but I always try to cover most anything.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can never plan for everything. I mean, like I like to have contingencies and plans for contingencies, but like you can never plan for worst case scenario. I mean, you can to an extent, but there's always something's going to pop up and rear its ugly head. And you're like, damn, I didn't even think about that. Because you can't think of everything. And it's that one thing you didn't think about it'll pop up and shut the whole operation down.
Well, one thing that got me needing to use the plasma cutter. I had a big job last Wednesday. I believe I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do a exhaust modification to a cremation oven, and it's all stainless. So that's why I bought the plasma cutter. Got the plasma cutter and got the compressor and everything because I knew I was going to need it for this job. Well, the one thing that could ruin me from using that did happen, and I couldn't plan for it. It poured down rain the whole day. So I never even got to use the plasma cutter.
Oh, no kidding.
Because me having the enclosed trailer, I couldn't bring the compressor inside the building. And, cause it was going to be running, and, I'm trying to be respectful and try to keep everything outside the building, cause I can't bring it in, even though we're downstairs. I don't know what's going on up above me where, families are coming in and out. So I'm having to try to be as quiet as I can, and also replace an 18-inch piece of pipe with an expansion joint and another nozzle on the other end. So I'm having to go down there, and I ended up having to cut the whole thing apart with a bunch of cutting discs.
Ooh.
But
that's not really quiet either.
No, but I mean, I was wanting to use the plasma, and with the rain and everything, the compressor was just sucking up too much moisture.
Yeah.
And I couldn't keep it drained enough. So I was pushing too much water into my.
Oh yeah. You got to throw a dryer on that thing, man. That's the worst part about having a plasma cutter. I mean, it's nice because you can cut anything that's electrically conductive, but you got to have that dryer system on there to be able to, keep all that moisture out of your line. Otherwise you just blow through all your electrodes and your nozzles and everything like at an expedient rate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, but luckily I called the people who I get all my stuff from, and I was in a frantic, and I'm like, I need help. I got to have help. So the technician, he comes running out there, and he's like, yeah, you're bringing in too much water.
Yeah.
So, and there was,
that's the biggest bitch you have in a plasma cutter.
Yeah. But it's pouring down rain. I mean, I couldn't catch a break. I was there till 10:30 that night, and it was me and the technician who works for the company that builds the actual cremation ovens, which it was, I couldn't get no help. Nobody wanted to come help me that day. I called around several people, and I was like, hey, I need an extra hand for the day. And once I tell them what it was, they were, no, I'm not coming nowhere near it. But I couldn't get no help. Even my producer wouldn't even come. I have a guy that does all my social media. He wouldn't come nowhere near it. I had to coax him into doing it.
Like, come on, man, I'll give you an extra $30. Come on. It's not
he's
bad.
Like, no. But I was there all day. There was nothing out of the ordinary. It was, but it was an industry that I never thought I'd work in.
Yeah. I mean, I had a company that rolled into my program. And they're like, hey, we're hiring welders. And I was like, okay, like what type of work do you do? And they're like, well, throughout the entire state, we maintain all the crematoriums. And I got to thinking to myself, I was like, damn, that's kind of a morbid job. But then again, like at the end of the day, that's something that needs to be serviced. It's something that's got to be taken care of.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Like I was telling you when you said because we tried to schedule this earlier, and you're like, yeah, I got to do a crematorium that night. I was like, I could kind of see that's an important deal. I mean, and that'll humble you really quick, but it's a very, solemn job to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, you're like, that work still has to be done. Somebody has to do that.
Yeah. Because there was no glamorous pipelining on that one. There was no TikToking and Instagram, and it was 18-inch pipe, stainless steel, 304 material that had to be, had to have these flanges welded on it, had to be bolted back up, had to be put back into service because this industry was relying on that piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's got to be a little bit of an eerie feeling being in there, like knowing what you got going on in there.
Yeah. And like I say, we were there we got there around 7:30 that morning, and we left at 10:30 that night. I got back to the shop a little after 11, and I never once seen anything. I mean, it was super clean. People's like, oh, the smell and this and that. I mean, there was nothing. There was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If they would have took the signs off the building, you wouldn't even have known where you were at.
Right.
But yeah, it was when you walk into a room and there's 15 Cadillacs all lined up, black Cadillacs in there, but like you say, it humbles you. It really makes you think about, being a good person and doing the right thing and trying your best. And if there's anything that you've ever wanted to do, like start a welding business, start.
Yeah.
Go through the right steps, think about how you're going to do it, and start. The first thing you got to do is think about, how am I going to attack this and how am I going to get it going? So it makes you, really put in perspective on, trying to do the right thing and not waiting, because sometimes I feel like I waited too long to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody said, well, you kind of started it at a bad time. I was, well, when's a good time to start a business from scratch?
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Strong Hand Tools, makers of heavy-duty fabrication tables, toggle clamps, and a plethora of other fabrication items to make your life as a welder and fabricator that much easier. Strong Hand is coming out with new innovations on a weekly basis of tools to help you decrease time and increase productivity. And if you're a student and you want to get a free gift package of some of their cool tools sent to your school, head on over to stronghandtools.com/ArcJunkies and register today. Now let's get back into the show. Yeah, there's never a good, it's like, having a kid, everybody's like, I'm going to wait to have a kid till I can afford one. Well, shit, you're never going to have a kid then. You're never going to be able to afford it. When am I going to start my business? Well, when I can afford it. And it's like, no, to figure out a way to, start pushing in that direction, because if you wait until you can afford it, it's never going to happen. But if you come to that point where it's like, it's either fail or succeed,
mm-hmm.
you start coming up with different ways to be able to succeed, because there's no other alternative. The other alternative is failure.
Right. And I failed. And I have failed at this. I've quit several times. I've almost sold the business before. Just, but I keep digging, trying to hope, that it's going to get better. And I know it's going to get better. I just have to keep going forward. And I try to make every step. I try to think about every step going forward on how I can grow, versus just going out here on a whim and hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
But even, going back to getting started, even if you don't have an LLC business right off the bat, okay, go ahead and start accruing tools.
Yeah.
Go ahead and start getting up some clamps. You're going to need clamps.
You're always going to need a damn clamp.
Yeah, you're going to need clamps.
Right behind these flags I got here, like nobody can see it, but like right behind these banners, it's just a wall of clamps. You can never have too many clamps.
No. So start accruing equipment and tools and thinking about, okay, I know I want this particular machine. I don't really have a need for it right yet, but this is where I'm wanting to go. But this is some of the things that I know that I can do with it. And, I know that I know I'm going to need this right here. I'm going to, and start getting it piece by piece to where it's not a huge, I just dumped $20,000 right off Jump Street.
Yep.
And now I got all this stuff, little to no work, but I got all nice, pretty equipment.
That's like they say. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. That's what I mean. Like, even when I got out of the military and just kind of stumbled into structural steel ironwork, every paycheck I was buying tools.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have everything I needed to make my life a little bit easier on the job. So right. Like this week I'm buying, 2 pair of 11R clamps. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next week I'm buying 2 pair of 11SP clamps. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It's not like this weekend I'm going to buy a welding machine. Next weekend I'm buying a plasma cutter. It's like, no. Like, get you a chalk box, get you a level, get you a couple of squares, get you some, clamps. Definitely, you can never have too many clamps. Get you a small, set of ratchets or a small set of wrenches, screwdrivers. Just start accumulating and investing in yourself.
Yes.
That way, when it comes time, it's like, okay, I need to buy a welding machine. Everything else I've pretty much got. Yeah. That's like when I started a small business out of necessity, because I was like, shit, I can't make ends meet at the house, like on a teacher salary, part-time teacher salary at that. Like, this isn't what I thought it'd be, but I really like doing the work. I fired up a welding company. I was like, $500 for a welding generator. Done. Like, I already had, like a small, 210 machine. I already had all the clamps, squares, levels, all that other stuff, little tiny gang box and everything. I can put all my tools in there. I can go off and be like a little weekend welder and, come Monday, go back to work. I can take everything back out of the truck, set it back in the garage, and then, I'm good to go to work Monday through Thursday. Friday comes around, throw the box in the back of the truck, off to the next one. So you just start getting a little bit at a time. You don't have to blow your whole wad on initial setup.
Right. And then there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will tell you, don't quit your full-time job and then expect to start a business and it take off, because it hadn't. I had to take on one of the things that I wanted was my CWE. So I went and was an adjunct at Arc Labs welding school here in Piedmont. Went and taught with them, got to teach, got to work on my CWE. That was extra income that I needed because Southern Weld Company wasn't rolling along like I thought it was. You know, I knew the gates wasn't just going to open up once I bought that welding machine and I got my LLC from the state of South Carolina. I knew things wasn't going to bust open. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and then I've also had to step back and go work a job, work a project, work a shutdown, you know, and then fight and scratch and harass people a little bit on LinkedIn and, you know, to get it going. So, you know, doing a weekend warrior thing is not bad at all. You know, there's no, you know, there's no harm in that. There's no, but, you know.
And everybody's kind of in a different situation. So if you got the money, you know, if you roll back off of, you know, working on the road and you did it smart, you know, you saved up your money. You didn't put it all up your nose. Cause I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, like there's a lot of people that, and like, I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but there's a lot of people that start making that money. They don't know what to do with it. They get they get wrapped up in a bad lifestyle or get put in a bad way. And then there's some other people that are like, you know what, like I'm going to get on the road. I'm going to make this money and I'm going to rat hole it. You know, I'm going to store as much money as I can away. I'm going to eat the ramen. I'm going to live it, you know, right out of my fifth wheel. And I'm going to save up as much money as I can. So when I come back, I can put a down payment on a house. I can start a welding business. You know, I can do this. I mean, you thought everything out like in a good way to set yourself up for success. Cause like, that's a great reason to get out on the road and make that money. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, unless you want to be tied to it and work 40 years out on the road. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that lifestyle either. Everybody's got different goals and ambitions in life, but being able to have that, like that little nest egg to come back and do it, there's nothing wrong with that. Likewise, you know, if you're working like a regular 9 to 5, you're putting in 40 hours and, you know, you're setting yourself up, you're saving, you're doing these little side jobs and buying some tools and you're putting away, you know, like I always tell people, you know, like if you want to like leap from your full-time job to, you know, starting your own gig, save up 6 months, you know, save up 6 months worth of your bills, you know, have some money put aside for like an incident, like air conditioner goes out, an appliance goes out, put some money away for that, but like save up at least 6 months worth of income before you pull the pin on your full-time steady income job before you go off on your own. Make sure you got enough money coming in to kind of supplement you before you know, jump out and take that leap of faith. I mean,
yeah, because it's a big jump.
It is, but then there's some people that are like, you know what, I've had enough with this, and you know they make that jump and they succeed. But I mean, that's not always the case. You always hear about the people that, you know, they left their job and they started their side business and it's a huge success because that's what people want to share. You never hear about the guy that like he was like started his side gig and quit his full-time job and fell flat on his face and was, you know, back to work, you know, at his old job 3 weeks later. You don't see that success. You don't see that story because it wasn't a success. So you're not going to find that on your Instagram and Facebook feeds. So you got to plan it out and do what's best for you, whether it's coming back and you've got enough capital to invest in a company, or you do it in stages, or you kind of save up to do it. I mean, there's no wrong way to start a business and go off on your own.
No, but you know, it does take a lot of luck, you know, to make that phone ring. It does take, you know, it took planning, you know, and you know, what can I do to make that phone ring? How can I make myself different from everybody out there? And that was one of the things that I really looked at wanting to do, is be different. Because you know, just like when you go to apply for a job, if there's 20 resumes on a stack, how is your piece of paper going to be different from the other 19?
Yeah. How are you going to stand out?
Yeah. How are you going to stand out? So, you know, investing in yourself and things like that to make yourself better. You know, what can I do to improve? What can I do to not be average?
Right. So what are some of the things that you did to make yourself stand out from other local business and entrepreneurs within the same industry?
Well, one of the things was my CWI. There's not a lot of companies that, a lot of welding companies around here that even have a CWI. So that was one of the things that I knew that I could offer as well, other than being able to come in and do some welding. I can also come in and do some inspections and things like that. So that was one of the things that I had that was different. My setup is different. I looked at everybody's, setup. How are they getting their tools and their equipment around? That's one reason why I went with the trailer. One, I didn't have the means to want to tie up a vehicle full time as a welding truck.
Mm-hmm.
So with the truck I have, I was able to say, hey, I can get this trailer. I can keep everything locked up. And this was before I had my shop. The trailer stayed parked here in the driveway. I could keep everything locked up, secured. I can also put a wrap on it, letter it, phone numbers and websites and stuff like that. And that was one thing too. I looked at websites. I looked at people's websites, and I also looked at their LinkedIn. I looked at their Google listings. Anything like that, not trying to copy and paste and not trying to say what they did was wrong, but how can I do it differently than what this company did? And so that's what I did. I invested in my CWI. I invested in, obtaining procedures and quality manuals and, getting my OSHA 30, the insurance, the workman's comp, the general liability. Okay, this company over here carries $1 million in general liability. I'm going to carry $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that I could, like that I could do to help me stand out, and just something little like that.
That's a couple things. You hit on a lot of good topics. Like, I want to start off with the OSHA 30 thing, because, like having an OSHA 10, I know a lot of people in industry, different companies, at least down here in Central Florida, if you don't have your OSHA 10, you're not getting that job anyway, because that company's getting a discount for you being on the job site because you have that credential in your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So having OSHA 10, OSHA 30's even better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a great endorsement to have, and you walk in there and you tell these companies, hey, look, I've got an OSHA 10 and an OSHA 30 endorsement. I'm capable of doing the work. I'm capable of doing it safe. And then, when you talked about your limited liability insurance, that's a big thing too, because I stayed right around the $1 million mark. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of other companies and contractors that I could have worked for and performed work for had I had that $2 million rider.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have worked at some of the theme parks around here. If you got to have at the time I was doing it, it was like $2 million general liability and then $2 million on the vehicle, which I could have added it to my policy,
Mm-hmm.
For a significant fee, which it wasn't bad, because I think I was paying like $670 or something like that for $1 million worth of general liability, which is
not bad.
Which it's not bad, as a welder.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'd have bumped it up to that $2 million mark, I could have picked up even more work. But even, just having $1 million worth of general liability, I was picking up enough work to sustain myself, sustain my family, supplement my income. But, like you said, separating yourself from other people. Right. I've got more liability insurance. I can go after some of the bigger jobs. I qualify to bid on some of these jobs because I have weld certifications. I have, I've got my OSHA 30. I have $2 million worth of general liability. That puts you in a completely different bracket from your competitors. So knowing, what you want to do out in industry, as well as knowing what everybody else is doing, that's a good way to keep yourself separate and be able to bid on specific jobs that they're not going to be able to get because they don't qualify. They don't hit that minimum threshold.
Right. And like I say, and going back to the discussion you and I had when we first got started, documentation as far as being a welder goes, what do you have? Because they'll throw that loose term around. I need a certified welder.
Oh man, if I had a freaking nickel for every time I heard that shit, I'd have a shitload of nickels.
Yeah, I have one client, and they said, in order for you to do the work, you need to be a certified welder. Okay, that's no problem. Here, I'll scan this WPS and my PQR, and I'll scan you all my paperwork, and I'll send it right to you. And that right there, just to get the procedures and stuff like that, and for me to qualify PQRs, was a little over $1,000 by the time I sent everything off and had it analyzed. And I sent it down to Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I could have done it locally, but again, I wanted it to be different. So I sent it to somebody who didn't even know who the heck I was, got an unbiased opinion, unbiased results, you know, instead of saying, okay, well, you had the local lab here do it, and, you know, you probably gave them a kickback or whatever, and they cut you a deal. No, I sent it to somebody I didn't even know, had another CWI stamp off on my paperwork, you know, and then anybody else who comes in and works for me, obviously I can test them and stamp off on them from there. But I could have easily stamped off on all myself. I could stamp off on anything I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But like I say, I wanted to be different to show, you know, I can do what I'm telling you I can do. Here's my documented proof.
Yeah. And it probably blew their mind that you had all the ducks in a row, because like we were talking about before I hit the record button, it's like I get so many people that call me up and they're like, hey, I need a certified welder. And like we were talking, like a certified welder isn't like a certified contractor or a certified electrician or a certified plumber, because they pretty much, they stay within a specific scope. But when you say I need a certified welder, okay, what alloy are you working on? What code are you working to? You know, what process are you working to? There's a lot of different things that, you know, kind of go into that certified welder. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're doing like a lot of T8 wire for a bridge connection, I can't send you a person that has, you know, they're a certified welder in, you know, 3G limited thickness 7018. Mm-hmm. It's not even the right process, not even the right alloy, not even the right application or material thickness. So there's got to be a better way, and I got to figure it out now that I'm actually having to deal with this. Like, there's got to be a better way to let the general public know that when you request a certified welder, there's a lot of stipulations that go into that. It's really a loaded question.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And a lot of people just don't know. They just know that, hey, I need somebody that's a certified welder, and I could send them anything. They're like, well, it's good enough because it looks good enough. It looks legit.
It's got a stamp. It's got a red stamp in the bottom right-hand corner. We're good to go here.
Yeah. Hey, this is all I need. We'll send it on, and congratulations, you got the job. But, you know, if an audit ever come back around, or for something, you know, this thing happens to go to court for some reason or whatever, 10 years down the road, that's a binding legal document that says, yes, I can, and no, I can't. And this is my limitations, and this is who tested me, and this is how I tested. Because I gave myself the test here. I actually done it in the garage. I had the trailer backed up in the driveway. I pulled the leaves into the garage, and I took pictures of everything, the machine settings, the rod oven, my temp sticks, everything. I took pictures of everything and then time-stamped it as I took the welding test. Sent off a stack of pictures, which I don't even know if they even looked at them, but I sent everything off with the coupons and stuff when I sent them down to Mississippi to have them to test it. Just because I felt like if I was to take this piece of 6G pipe but laid it here on the table and rolled it in 1G and sent it off, you know, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. I figured if I cheated myself, I would pay for it somewhere down the road, karma-wise. So I said, I'm going to do it the right way. And if I fail, I fail. If I pass, I pass, you know, and I'll, you know, deal with it then.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think right now, like it almost seems there's a lot of companies, or I would say general contractors, they're requiring that certification. Mm-hmm. Like the stipulations people are cracking down on them more, especially like your big contractors, your theme parks and everything. They want to see that entire list of documentation, because like when I got out of the military and I was doing non-union work, I was doing a lot of welding and stuff. And I'd always have the, you know, different inspectors roll up on the job site and be like, yeah, you certified? Yes, sir. And I'd go pull my piece of paperwork. I carried my paperwork and my film from when I passed my welding cert in like 10th grade. And I'd show them that. Hell, I didn't know any better. According to, you know, like what I was told, I was a certified welder. And I'd hand them the paperwork, and here's the x-ray film, you know, from like 1999, and here it is 2006, 2007. And they're like, all right, you're good to go. And, you know, they'd leave me alone. And it's knowing what I know now, it's like, holy shit, what were you people thinking? Like, there's no continuity logbook associated with that. I haven't taken a weld test since, you know, 1999. Like, there should be you should have some questions for me, sir. Or at least jumping in the basket and like checking out the type of work that I'm doing. But now it seems like they're tightening down. They're like, we want to see a WPS, attached to your welding cert. I want to see that number. Okay, that WPS, you got to have a PQR attached to that. Okay, good. We want to see a welder performance qualification record. Okay, we got that. Good. Okay, looks like you got everything under control. Have a good day.
Yeah,
that's why when people are like, I need to certify my guys. Okay, which code? We talking like AWS structural for steel, aluminum, stainless? We doing API 1104? We doing ASME section 9? Like, what do you need?
Yeah.
And they don't know.
No, and they don't. And I'm working with a company right now, major company. They brought me in. They needed me to test. Got to looking at it. They didn't know what to test me on. And then come to find out, it's been wrong since the 90s. We're testing in this code, we're working in this code, but it should have been over here on this code. And it was all three, different players in the game. So there was no consistency on what was, who was supposed to be the player in this game here. And then trying to figure out who and what direction actually go in. Once we got that figured out, now we can qualify a procedure.
Yeah.
Now we can move forward. And this is going to start us off in the right direction, because they had actually had an internal audit, and that's what caught it. But it went back to, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Yep.
And nobody ever caught it. Nobody ever looked into it. And everybody that's involved with it now hadn't even been involved with it maybe less than 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Been doing it this way for 20 years. Never had any questions until we did.
Till we had a question.
And now all the people that were involved with it, they're all retired, and they're drawing a pension, and they ain't answering the phone. They're out there fly fishing.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do as well, is get some of these companies straight back. Okay, this is where you actually need to be. This is actually the code that you're actually working toward. Because a lot of people just don't know.
I've actually run into the experience where people, they'll send me a WPS and a PQR, and then I'm matching the WPS and the PQR together, and I'm like, shit, I couldn't even weld this. And not like I'm God's gift to welding or anything, but it's like, you can't run these settings and get these type of results. So does this PQR, was this, I mean, it's got a CWI stamp on it, but is it legit? Is it valid? Or did somebody type in all the values?
Yeah.
So I've gotten to the point where I'm going to start testing some of these PQRs and just seeing is this stuff actually, am I able to achieve this?
Yeah. But it's out there a lot more than what I would think would be out there. And it's pretty common. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's been rubber stamped to get a job going or be able to get a bid awarded. And it's sad, but I mean, there's got to be a way. Maybe that's my lifelong mission. There's got to be a way to kind of get everybody to understand exactly what a certified welder is, and then validate WPSs against PQRs and have all the legitimate documentation to prove this stuff.
Good luck to you is all I got to say.
I know, right? Because as much as I love being a CWI, there's once you take the test, and I had this conversation with another kid today that, I don't want to say kid, he's probably in his 30s. He's wanting to go obtain his CWI, but he's already getting stuff through AS&T. And with AS&T, you got to have hours attached to that. With the CWI, you got to be able to pass a test, which is great because, I mean, it's a hard freaking test, but there's no practical application tied to it. You don't have to write a WPS. You don't have to administer a PQR. You don't have to document a PQR. So to be able to understand all that, you kind of really have to start, once you get that CWI, you really have to start working in that industry and developing procedures and, checking all the parameters with welding and the essential variables, the non-essential variables, and going through the actual testing process, not just looking at it in a book and be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Hell no, run that test yourself and go cut it and bend it and see what's actually going on in that material. Or run a macro etch or do a fillet weld break test. There's a lot of stuff that, you got to put some hands onto it,
And that's one of the things that I've been wanting to do when I got my CWI is, that was a huge investment and that was a huge endeavor. And you know what it was like when you got that.
Oh yeah.
When you finally got that card and that envelope and that stamp come in the mail, it was a huge relief.
My knees hit the deck, dude. I was like, thank God I don't have to do that again.
Yeah, because I tested like when you did when we took all 3 parts
in one day.
Yeah, and you had 6
brutal.
hours. Oh yeah, you come out. I couldn't even tell you my name. I didn't know nothing. But I try to go at least once a year and take some type of continuing education. Mm-hmm. And me being right here in South Carolina, I skipped down to LJ, Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Gerald and Linda are a wealth of knowledge. And I actually went and took a welding procedure class with them, got 40 hours. I think it was last month. And it was well worth the week off. It was well worth the money to sit there and go through the class. And I learned a lot. And Gerald and Linda are huge in this industry. I wouldn't be where I was at if it wasn't for them.
I was going to ask you, how is that class? Because I've been meaning to take it. And I know like COVID screwed all their dates up and stuff because I wanted to take it like shortly after I got my CWI because they have a fundamentals of the CWI program, which if anybody's listening, if you're considering getting your CWI, I highly recommend going through the fundamentals of CWI before you go through the CWI course. Just because it's hands-on, it's practical, especially if you're coming from the welding industry. Like if you know welding and you want to understand inspection, go through that class first because it's 40 hours of hands-on. And I didn't realize that they had that class until after I took my CWI. And I think it was like that Saturday afternoon when I was done, I started talking to Gerald and Linda about taking that next class. And like I really want to go take that class.
They have a lot. They actually have a map, on the steps you need to take if you want to become a CWI and what to do after that, whatever your goal is. If you want to be more of a technician or if you want to be more of a code guy, or, however you're wanting to go once you obtain it, they have a roadmap on their website. And I've actually, before they changed the website, I actually printed off the old one and I've gone through and marked, okay, like the fundamentals I didn't need, so I marked it out. Okay, I've already got my 80 hours, so I've checked that. Okay, I've got MT and PT, I've checked that. And I started checking it off because one of my goals is to obtain my senior. So I'm working toward that, and I'm also working toward my welding supervisor. So that's one of the things that that I'm trying to plan out for me. Even if Southern Weld Company for some reason doesn't make it, and I do have to go back out on the road, I'm still a good employee. I'm still, I still got a good strong resume.
Well, at that point, you could also expand your services. So one thing I would actually recommend to you is go take that the WPQ1, the Weld Performance Qualifier. Go take that test. Like, that wasn't, after taking my CWI, that wasn't like an extremely difficult test. You get 3 hours to take it. And I think they do the training like online. It's I think it was every Tuesday and Thursday I had to take the test or the class, and it was like 3 hours per session. I highly recommend that. One thing you should actually look into is becoming an ATF. If you've got like a shop where you can actually do the testing and stuff like that, look into becoming an ATF, because I'm telling you, like the amount of companies that need certified welders, you've got the experience, you've got the credentials, go take that Weld Performance Qualifier exam, and it'll basically, show you how to walk somebody through that the CW exam, certified welder exam. And, with your background as a CWI and a CWE, I think you'll come out on top with that.
And that's something that I have looked into.
Get yourself set up as an ATF, man. Yeah. You can run that like right out of, if you've got a welding machine that you can get, verified, you've got a rod oven. That's pretty much all you need. And a bend tester that you can, maintain a maintenance record on it. Look into that, because you can start making money certifying welders. Like in your downtime, if you've got like off seasons or something like that with what you got going on, set up an ATF, dude.
Yeah, I've been asked by several former students and other welders and stuff like that, hey, would you consider opening up a school, or would you consider testing welders, or would you consider letting me come to your shop and practice? And that's something that is on my list of things to get. I am looking to get into ATF, and I'm also looking at a couple, like an R stamp and things like that. But, I've got a list of things that I want to accomplish. So that is on the list of things I'd like to have, or services I'd like to offer, because like you say, not a lot of them offer it.
Yeah.
And once you started offering that, they come running out of the woodworks, and they just,
even if you have a school like in your area that's offering it, they might not be able to keep up with the demand. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you become an ATF, AWS is going to list you on their website. So when companies look and they're like certified welder, South Carolina, boom, like your company's going to come up as an accredited testing facility. Mm-hmm. And we're already in contact anyway. You got my cell phone number. Shoot me a message. I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction, or point you to the right person to be able to help you get everything set up. But it'd be a worthwhile investment, especially with somebody like yourself that has all the credentials anyway. Mm-hmm. That'd be something to kick off like during your downtime. Like you guys get some winters up there. Work might not be as prevalent, or it's busy season, for the company, so they don't have time to do the shutdowns. Fire up some ATF work.
Oh yeah. And that is, like you say, something that I'm looking to get into. And that's something that not a lot of people around here that can offer. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that Southern Weld Company can do, not just welding and fabrication. And that was something that I felt like that made me different from most.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask, is having your CWI, has that helped you out with your company? Being able to like bid work and, like show those credentials and be like, hey, not only can I lay a good weld, I can tell you what one looks like.
No, I don't know about a good weld. I'm nowhere near
inspection.
I'll make it past inspection. But, anything that you can set yourself apart, and the more documentation you have, the more, because running the hole under your nose will only get you so far. Telling everybody you can is one thing, but when you show documented proof, that seals it right there. Because, hey, this has already been bought off by a third party. Here's all this proof. Here's all this literature, and I got it all in order. And so automatically, he's got his stuff together. He's got, he's organized. He's planned and thought about how to, before he even put the key in the door and opened it, how he was going to set everything up. And that, looking at that from, a prospective client, that's who I would want, versus somebody who come in with, ratty out looking truck and, crap, and can't even spell his name right, and it's Bob, and he's misspelled his name, just doesn't have his stuff together.
Right. He's got a good looking rig, but he can't do the work.
Yeah. Right. So, or he's got a dash full of paperwork and cups, and, he just doesn't look good rolling on a multi-billion-dollar, facility. Oh, I wouldn't want to see that.
Yeah. That's one of the things they actually, and I didn't think about it at the time, because I thought it was kind of a joke. Like when I was in the military, we had something called an I Love Me book. And that's where you put all the stuff, like all the certificates of appreciation and all your accomplishments and everything. You just make a binder of like all the cool shit that you've done, essentially. Mm-hmm. So when I started like going through, when I got on the industry and I started collecting certificates like OSHA 10, OSHA 30, certified welder, CWI, CWS, WPQT1, like, yeah, easy for you to say. Like I started collecting all these different documents of the training that I've been through, all the different classes, the seminars I've attended with AWS, or when I went up to Lincoln Electric and attended these classes. Mm-hmm. Like I just got like a 3-ring binder with the clear sleeves, and I just started, instead of putting all these certs up on my wall, I started putting them in a book. And that's my I Love Me book. So if I go, meet up with the contractor and I say, hey, I'm looking to do this job, I can like, what documentation you need? Okay, you need OSHA 10, OSHA 30, boom, done. You need a certified welder, boom, done. Mm-hmm. Whatever the case may be, like I've got all my certs in one place.
Right.
And when I went out and did a lot of work for industry, that's what I would show them. I'd show them, like a smaller copy of my I Love Me book. And it's like, here's all the credentials stating that I can do what I say I can do. And it's validated through a third party. It's not me telling you I can do the work. Somebody else, an accredited institution has said this. OSHA said that I'm good. I'm safe to work on your job site. The American Welding Society said I'm safe to do the welds on your job site. Here's the certified welders application. Here's my WPS, my PQR. Like here's everything you need. And so building that, like, it's almost like a portfolio of documentation of classes you've been to, stating that you know how to do the work, and then you go out there on the job, you get the job, and you perform the work.
Right. And there's not a thing wrong with that. That's not boasting or bragging. I mean, that's just facts, and that's just you having your stuff together to where you can present it, because end of the day, I'm here to get this job. I'm here to win this contract, and whatever I can do to better present myself and my company so I can eat, so I can pay my bills, and so I can, get a chance to even do the job so I can get the next one.
Yeah.
And the one after that, or get tied in with a company and say, this is our guy from now on. It's only going to benefit you in the end.
Now, have you found like a lot of companies are referring you to other companies to do the work?
Not as much. Like I say, it's still kind of slow, bridging that gap between me and a lot of the industry. But it's slowly getting there. I'm big on pushing Google reviews. And so if I do a job for any kind of company, I have, hey, can you give me a Google review? And that's been a lot of help that way. But I've, once I can get up a little bit more clientele, I feel like that would be, an option. But right now it hasn't really been that way.
Okay. Have you found that like Google reviews and stuff, they're paying off?
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of people don't know who Southern Weld Company is. A lot of people just know, oh crap, I need a welder, or I need a certified welder, or I need an aluminum welder, or I need a mobile welder, or I need a welder, and I need one close. And they just go right to their phone, or they're right to their desktop, and they just go to Google search, and they just type it in. And now I'm starting to rank up toward the top once I've figured out the keywords, and I got a company that handles all the SEO stuff. So it tells me what language Google is speaking and what somebody is looking for, and how can I, what can I do to make you come towards me? And so I try to upload a lot of pictures and try to put in as much information as I can and make it as strong as I can versus just a Google listing. I put a lot of effort into that Google listing, because it goes back to a lot of people just don't know that they just know they have a need.
Yeah.
They don't know who Southern Weld Company is. They just know I need a welder, and I don't know anybody.
Yeah, you got to get all the right buzzwords in there, and that's what a lot of people don't think about when they're advertising, especially with Google. Is you spoke about SEO, which for people that don't know, it's search engine optimization. So the more words you put into your portfolio, your reviews, your job description, the more words they have in common with what somebody searched, the higher your ranking is going to be in Google. So if they're looking for, if you have say for instance, certified welder listed in your job description or your reviews, and somebody types in, certified welder, South Carolina, boom, like Southern Welding Company or Southern Weld Company is going to pop up number one, because you have the most in common with what they actually searched for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I say, it goes back to a lot of people don't know. They just know they have an issue that requires a welder, and their insurance says, hey, you got to have somebody to certify. And that's all they know. And then that's where I come in and say, okay, this is what you need. This is the code that we're going to be working to, and things like that. And as long as you know, and you can make them feel comfortable and knowing that and you're there to build that relationship, and they can trust you to, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows he has our best interest in mind. He's not here just to make a quick buck and go on down the road.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you run into that situation, being able to getting a phone call and, they kind of tell you what they think they need, And then you
Yes.
tell them exactly what they need. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll call you back. And they try and find that and they can't, and they call you back.
Yeah, I've ran into that before. You know, not a whole lot, but some people have a general idea of what they want or what they think they might need. And then once they call me, and I can decipher what information they give me and what they're working to and
Kind
things
of
like that.
educate them on what they actually need versus what they think they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like this company I'm working with now. They've been doing it wrong since the 90s, and nothing on them. They just didn't know. So we've worked together to get it ironed out and say, okay, this is the actual code that we need to be working on. And this is how we need to test, and this is how we need to build it going forward. Because they had this stuff into place, and it just happens to be not where they needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, and the funny thing is, like, a lot of employers, a lot of contractors, they really don't know what they need. You know, they've got a set of bid documents in front of them. You know, they got the contract documents, blueprints, and all that other stuff, which are legal binding documents, and they kind of decipher through it. They really don't understand what they need, and they run across that certified welder jargon, and they start trying to find that, and they really don't understand what they actually need. Like we talked about before, you know, if you're doing a structural steel job and you find somebody that's a certified welder, but it's to like D12 for aluminum, you're like, oh yeah, they're AWS certified, they'll fit. It's completely the wrong code.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so being able to provide your client with that, or your potential client, that type of information is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it is a company that knows what they need, and something needs to be rewritten or something needs to be modified or something like that, you know, and like I say, I don't know everything, but I can, you know, I got enough resources where I can find an answer, you know, if somebody asks me something that I don't know. So, but
definitely having that network helps out quite a bit, because if you don't know the information, like I know I've got a lot of people just here in Central Florida that if I don't know the answer, or if I'm looking into something, I can always reach out to them and get verification or clarification, and just make sure that, you know, okay, yeah, I know what I'm talking about with this, and you know, here's exactly what you need. You know, because a lot of times, like, and that's the greatest thing about like getting your CWI, is because, you know, as a welder, you're kind of in a small niche group, but once you become a CWI, you're in another niche group. So now your network's kind of expanded. And, you know, you can provide more information to your clients.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But again, you know, having the right integrity to tell somebody, even if you're wrong or if they're wrong, to come up and say, hey, this ain't quite right. And I know you've been doing it this way, but we're going to have to change it. And it's actually going to cost you thousands of dollars to get it actually switched over, even though nothing's happened, but we're going to have to change it.
Yeah, nothing's happened. We got to switch some things up because you've not been doing it right.
Right. But, you know, and that goes back to, you know, training and having the right resources and experience and the time in the industry. And you know, and trying to do better and trying to learn stuff and because like I say, I don't know it all, but I got enough resources that I'm pretty sure I can find the right answer. And that has probably been the biggest thing is that network.
Now, have you found out that like your time on the road has kind of helped prepared you to run your own business, or provide your potential clients with like information that they're going to need?
Yes.
When it comes to like hiring, you know, somebody that's qualified to do the job.
Yes. I mean, working in, let's say, manufacturing or working in maintenance at a facility is one thing, but when you go out on a road somewhere and you're building a plant from the ground up, or you're going in there and you're doing an addition or whatever, and now you're starting to deal with, because a lot of manufacturing and production work and maintenance, they don't deal with QCs or codes or, you know, a lot of these companies, you know, I'll be talking to the maintenance people and I'll tell them I'm a CWI, and they'll be like, what the heck is that?
What's that?
What's that? You know, and so going out on the road has excelled me, you know, versus when I was just working in a plant, kind of doing the same thing, doing some MIG fabrication, nothing against that. But once I got out and started doing a lot more code work and a lot more, there's a lot more procedures, a lot more paperwork involved. There's safeties involved with this, there's testing involved with this versus just getting it welded and getting it moved down the line or getting it welded and painted and stuck out there in the factory somewhere. It made a big difference, and it helped me grow and see that, hey, okay, now I understand why I can't have no more than 1/8 reinforcement on a root, versus just slamming it together in a plant somewhere and welding it because we need to get the line going, and nobody's ever going to look at it because it's way up there in the rack and nobody cares.
That's why when I attended, so that's one thing I'd recommend you checking out is the weld procedure development class with Charlie Cross. It's ran through Lincoln Electric. They do one Atlanta, Georgia. They've got one in Los Angeles. But that was a cool thing because Charlie was talking about the moron theory. And it not moron as in somebody's not intelligent, but the moron. So the engineer designs it and he says, 1/4-inch fillet weld. And then QC gets a hold of it and they're like, well, if 1/4-inch is good, 5/16 is even better. And then by the time it gets to the welder, they're like, oh, we'll throw 3/8 on it. Now we've got excessive weld reinforcement because everybody's put a little bit more on into, the mix. So you've got to check out that class. It's great. And then you were talking about getting your CWS. That's kind of the one thing that I want to shoot for next is the certified welding supervisor exam. That's even more information you can provide with your clients because everybody thinks that more weld is better, but it's not. We talk about excessive weld reinforcement. Now you're messing up the turbulence or the flow of something going through the material. Or when we talk about excessive weld reinforcement for structural steel applications, now we have a lot more stress accumulated in that heat effective zone. So just being able to kind of explain that to your client, that's going to, once again, separate you from your competition and say, hey, when you hire me, you're getting a little bit more than somebody that can just pull a trigger or run a stick or, kind of TIG weld down that line. You're getting education as to what you need. Like you said, you got a client they've been doing it. Technically, they've been doing it wrong for the past 30 years. Now that you can kind of separate and say, hey, you can educate them, and they're going to call you back because they're like, Jeremy knows what he's talking about when it comes to all this welding stuff. We don't know what we're talking about, but Jeremy does. We'll bring him back. So you earn a repeat customer that way.
And even though they have welders on staff, I'm not there to take business from anybody. If I can help their business, whether it be a shop that says, hey, we need you to write us some procedures. I'm not there to get your work and take your shop and move it to my shop. I'm here to help your shop, grow and be better, because the way I looked at it when I started this, I knew I can't weld everything. I can't inspect everything. I can't be there for every single thing that goes on in this area. But if I can help somebody, or help this business or even help this other welder, then I'll do it. I'll help anybody out, so, and that goes back to building that network, just because I have all these other welders around me, nothing against them. If they need my help, I'll go help them. And if I got in a pinch where because right now I'm a one-man band, and if I need another set of hands and I need somebody that I know that I can kind of depend on, I might have to call one of these other welders to come help me, and I got to trust that they're going to, do the right thing as well. So that, I'm not here to try to step on anybody's toes or take over or anything like that. I'm trying to be an asset and try to give back to the industry. I knew I didn't want to come in with the Pirates flag and try to take over South Carolina,
But I mean, that's a good way to look at it, because not only are you providing a welding service, you're also providing inspection and, information to the client to say, hey, you say you're looking for a certified welder, or you say you're looking for this, here's what you actually need. So, helping them develop procedures and, putting a QA process in place with their company, that's going to help them out even more.
Right.
And that once again separates you from your competition. By having those credentials and being able to explain to them, here's exactly here's what you think you need. Here's what you actually need.
Right.
That's a good way to do it, man.
Like I say, I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can to do the best I can and to be, somewhat of a service to this area or even to the whole country. If I get DMs from people and people ask me on Instagram and things like that, I don't mind helping anybody because I had to have help. I wasn't born a welder. I was actually a business and marketing student who couldn't get past accounting. And I was like, I couldn't get past accounting. So I was like, what am I going to do? So me living here right outside of Charlotte, I've been a race fan my whole life. I transferred over to the welding program, and then I was going to move up to Charlotte and try to get a job building race cars. And that was 20-something years ago. I didn't build the first race car.
Yeah.
But, I had to have help. I had to be mentored. The people that taught me how to weld, I thought the world of them. And, and I've, in my journey, out here working construction and being out on the road and things like that, I've met some amazing people that's been, lifelong friends, and I've met some characters and heard some wild stories, but, I don't know if I'd trade any of it really.
Right. Now, I'll tell you one thing though, like accounting is a bitch, and that's why I hired somebody else to do it. Cause that whole profit and loss statement and everything's got to equal out. I'm like, no, that doesn't equal out. Like, no, I hire somebody to get that done.
Yeah, I can handle the checkbook math. I know if I got deposits coming in, if I got money going out. But
yeah,
you get past that, I'm lost as last year's Easter egg. I have no idea.
Yep, you hire a CPA for that. Like that's what once again sets you apart from other people. It's like knowing when to hire out specific parts of what it takes to make your business successful.
Yeah, because I can't do everything. So that's just like the social media aspect of it. I'm not tech savvy at all. I have trouble sending emails. I'm not ashamed to say it. So I needed help with social media. So I had to hire somebody to do TikTok and Instagram and post stuff and hashtag this. Because the first time I saw a hashtag, I said, that's not a hashtag. That's a pound sign. That's a pound sign.
Yes.
They're like, no, that's a hashtag. And I'm like, no, that's a pound sign.
That's a pound sign. Yeah.
That's a pound sign on a touch-tone phone. And they're all like, what's a touch-tone phone?
What's a pound sign? What's touch? Yeah.
Yeah. So I needed help with that. So I knew that, and they'll tell you, I'm not the person you want setting up meetings, sending emails, I have a person that does invoicing for me because I had somebody say, well, I need you to put this in PDF form. I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. That
I know
was
somebody that does.
Honestly, like the entire 6 years that I freaking spent in college, the best class I ever had was Microsoft Office. And everything else that they had, like Microsoft Office was like how to write a Word document, how to put a PowerPoint presentation together. And then like they threw a little bit of Adobe in there so I can convert a Word document to a a Word document into a PDF and be able to edit it. Because now I can do like my own invoicing, write my own WPSs, PQRs. Like I know how to do all that, but that was like, shit, if I could just like swap out my entire 6 years for that 16 weeks that I had in that one class, that was worth it.
Yeah.
But I seen your YouTube video that you had for Southern Weld Co. And that's a legit freaking video.
Yeah. I have one video on the YouTube channel, and that's something that I'm working toward, trying to do a little bit of how-to stuff, anything that I figured out in my short time, that I could share, a 3-5 minute video, sort of like what you were doing previously to this, but, anything that I could do to contribute back to, passing on knowledge and passing on something else. But yeah, I had that video. I actually wrote the script for that. And I liked how it turned out in a way. I do and I don't. How it was in my mind was, a complete movie project, but, it wasn't, it was on a very short budget, but having to research the guy that done the voiceover work, I wanted somebody who had that Sam Elliott, rough kind of voice.
There you go.
So I sent the script to him, and he modified it and read it, and we shot some footage, got some, more footage, but I'm working on the YouTube channel's coming.
Okay.
I got a couple more videos that I'm wanting to get done. Like I said, I got my guy, he does the TikTok and Instagram, because people want to see all that stuff. So I put all that out there because people's like, well, you got to start taking pictures of your work. And I'm so used to just doing it and not thinking about having to set up a camera or taking a picture or video, because I just don't think about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, no, you got to take pictures and you got to hashtag this and all that. And I'm like, I can't deal with none of this. So,
just being able to have somebody like follow you around, document your work, document the process. That I think that's going to once again separate you from your other competition.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, I'm trying everything I can to stand out and be different. And like I say, to be a help to somebody, because I've had people ask me, how did you start? What did you do? What was the process? And I'll tell them this, I'll tell them, this is what I've done. This is how I've got to this point, because I got nothing to hide. And this is the mistakes I've made. This is something that I've done wrong that I probably should have done it this way, but I ended up doing it this way and it turned out to be wrong.
Yeah. But you can't do it perfect every time.
No, absolutely not. And that's just like today. I fought it out with some cast aluminum. It won. I finally had to win.
Cast will do that.
Yeah, cast aluminum was just. We'll move on.
There's a lot of preheat and interpass temperature, post-weld heat treatment, and everything you got to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, so it was just too much going on. I couldn't get the stars to align.
No, cast aluminum is like, it can be a pain in the ass because, like I said, there's a lot of preheat temperatures, and depending on which grade you're dealing with, you got to grind out the crack, like drill a stop hole. Like, were you doing like pipe, plate, cast?
No,
or like
these were parts. There's a company here in town. They had some parts that they were wanting remanufactured, and so they take these pieces and bring new life into them. So these things have been used out in the field, so cleaning it was dang near impossible. Mm-hmm. So it was, it wasn't good to say the least.
So I actually learned a couple little tips on aluminum castings. If you want to entertain me for a minute.
Yes, go for it.
So especially if you're doing AC TIG welding, switch your machine over to DC negative, or I'm sorry, DC positive, because that's the cleaning part of your cycle. Mm-hmm. Hit the foot pedal and just kind of go over that material, and it's going to bring all the impurities up to the top. Hit it with a wire brush, and then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to hit it once again with DC negative or DC positive. AC is weird for me. I'm dyslexic. I get my left and my right hand mixed up. Switch it back over to DC positive. Again, that's your DC cleaning cycle. Mm-hmm. Run it right over the top. Just hit the foot pedal. Run it right over the top. It's going to pull up the impurities, oils, whatever from the manufacturing process or in-service process. Hit it with a wire brush again. You're going to do that 3 times on DC positive. Once that's all clean and everything, then you can start doing your AC TIG welding. I like doing AC TIG welding over running a spool gun, just because I have a little bit more control and I can set a little bit more cleaning action to it. And then you can obviously, preheat if necessary. But once you're done, and this is like a backwoods way of doing it, but I found it to be a good way of doing it. If the part will fit on a grill, throw a bag of charcoal on there, get it, while you're welding and everything, get that bag of charcoal going. And then once it kind of converts to ash, take that, or, it gets down to like coals, take that part, once it's done, completely welded, put it inside the grill, close the lid, and then check on it the next morning. Because what that charcoal is going to do is it's going to, heat up to like 500 something degrees, but overnight it's going to it'll get down to 500 and then 475 and then 450 and then 425, because it's just going to slowly, completely burn out. It's normalizing that material. And then once you walk out there the next morning, you pick the part up, it's nice and cool. It's already went through that cooling down process, but it's been brought down just a little bit at a time. And then once you put it back in service, it doesn't crack.
Yeah, where was you at 1 o'clock this afternoon? I needed that.
I was writing procedures for the D12, AWS D12 for a client that doesn't know exactly what they need. Dude, hit me up, Instagram. You got my cell phone number. Hit me up anytime. I've learned a lot of stuff about doing that. And then one of the companies that sponsors the podcast is Rockmount Research and Alloys. They actually make a TIG wire that you don't have to do any, and it's for, I want to say it's for steel or like cast steel and cast iron, but you don't have to do any preheat, interpass temp, post heat, none of that shit. You don't even have to like grind it out. You weld over top of this stuff with a TIG wire, and it's done. That's it.
It's a nickel type rod.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's another thing. I did a video on weld.com where we snapped the handle on a cast iron pan, and I took a nickel 99 SMAW electrode and busted the flux off of it, and then you preheat, and then you TIG weld it in there.
Huh.
Yeah, you do like your little your spot drills. So like you find the end of the crack and then drill an 1/8 inch out further, and you can just drill like a 16th inch diameter hole because it'll stop that crack from propagating.
Right.
And then you go back in there and it's small enough to be able to fill in, but it's big enough to stop that crack in its tracks. And that's something I learned when I was doing armor plate in the Marine Corps. You just do the stop drill and then TIG weld that stuff in there, and it'll work great for all your cast steel and cast iron applications.
Yeah.
The majority of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah. It works 100% of the time, almost every time.
Yeah. Well, cool, Jason. I'm honored you had me on the podcast. I've been watching and listening to these and trying to watch some of them when I'm on YouTube and things like that when they would be posted. But yeah, appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you taking the time of your day, man. I've got your sticker right there on my gang box and everything. You know, like, and I think this episode is going to help out a lot of people that kind of want to, you know, they're thinking about starting their own welding business, but they're not 100% sure. It's just going to give them, you know, like a little bit more to think about. And I like how you set your company up. You plan it out for several years. Like what type of industry am I going to get into? Who's doing that type of work in my area? What type of equipment am I going to need? What tools do I want? You know, it's a well thought out process. And I think that's what a lot of people should do getting into the industry. Like we talked about, you know, like early on in the episode, get that 5 to 7 years worth of work experience before you decide to go off on your own. Yes. Make those mistakes, learn how to rectify those mistakes, get some credentials, then go out in industry, or, you know, like then go out and set up your own company.
Yeah. I mean, there's no rush, you know. So the more you could plan, you know, and try to set it up, you know, and then just going out here on a whim and just say, oh, I'm just going to be a welder one day, or have a welding business. You know, there's a lot to it. So, you know, just sitting back and thinking and doing a little bit of research, you know, goes a long way.
Yeah. But hell, before we get out of here, why don't you go ahead and plug your different social media platforms? Where can people find you if they want to check you out on social media? Where can they find you on LinkedIn? And where can they find you if they want to bring you out and weld at their facility? Yeah,
you can on LinkedIn, you can go to Jeremy Condrey, or you can search for Southern Weld Company. Got Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, working on YouTube. That's all Southern Weld Company. I got some sponsors. I got a promo code. So if anybody's out looking for welding caps, I have a company out in Texas, RJ Welders. They make great hats. You go on their social media and figure out what kind of cap you want. You can use promo code SOWELD10. That gets you 10% off. And also Radical Ops TIG rigs. My buddy Tim out in Texas makes these rigs. I've been using them for a little over a year now. I have a few of them in my arsenal. And so Weld code 10, get you 10% off of a Radical Ops TIG rig. They come in different colors, but I'm kind of partial to the green and black. So that's what we go with. But yeah, you can hit me up anytime. I'll try my best to answer. Got into the sticker swapping. You know, I need to order some more stickers to swap. yeah, anything like that, or if anybody's got a question or comment or want to get a hold of me, need me to come out and do something, just let me know. I'll do my best to help anybody out.
Well, awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on here on the Arc Junkie podcast and kind of share your story with all the listeners.
Yes, sir. I do appreciate it. Hey, and I want to thank you for your service.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah. Anybody who sacrifices their time and puts this country first, that's tremendous in my book. So anybody that's listening and you yourself this sacrifice that for my freedom, I appreciate it, and I want to thank you for it.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
Yes, sir.
All right, everyone. Thanks once again for downloading the episode and hanging out with Jeremy and I today. I hope you all enjoyed the episode and found a few helpful tips along the way that you can use if you decide to start your own business. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for a new episode of Just the Tip Tuesday. And don't forget to swing by the Arc Junkies website to pick up all your hats, shirts, and hoodies. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.